Hi, this is Jennifer from Positively Learning, and today we're going to be talking about activities for your small reading groups. So, if you are pulling groups, whether for reading or you're starting to pull some reading intervention groups, and you're just not exactly sure what to be doing from week to week to week, I've got some solutions for you that you can use right away. Or maybe you are pulling small reading groups and you're using a set curriculum that you're following from the school, but you just know that students aren't as engaged or just doesn't feel as like there's a consistency there. Here's some ideas. These also can be added, whether you're adding them to your small groups as a warm up or a cool down, or you're adding them as centers to support what you're doing. Lots of ideas. So, what I'm going to be doing is opening up this file. It's one of the nursery rhymes, and it's Sing a Song of Sixpence is the one we're going to be doing. Comes from a larger bundle. And now this bundle has 36 of these nursery rhymes. And nursery rhymes are referring to the traditional rhymes that we know, but also including some children's songs and some finger plays. Now, there's 36 of them because there's 36 weeks of the school year, 180 school days. So the idea is that you would do these one set per week, and your whole year would be planned out for you. So that's why I want to spend some time digging into one of them. Every week is very similar as far as the routine, and that's intentional. This is kindergarten, first grade, possibly second grade, and you want the routine to stay the same. It's not going to be boring for them because the poem is different, the literacy tasks are different, but the routine is the same. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the consistency that you can start measuring progress. Your students are starting to develop confidence, that they are familiar, they're feeling successful because they know what to expect. You're also saving so much time because you don't have to continue to explain how to do a new activity. Your students are getting the gist as time goes on, and that means they're growing in independence. So all good things, but I promise it won't be boring. Now, wanted to show you this bundle for an important reason. See that green preview button? If you click on that, and I will link this in the description, this packet will open and you can download it today. So this is free. This goes through all the different types of tasks that you can do in these small groups. We're going to be going over these and seeing exactly what they look like today, but if you wanted to have something printable to reference afterwards, this is here for you. So these are activities we would use in our small reading groups. This page includes the table of contents of all the poems and the little songs, and then I just have some more details about the different activities and what's included. And again, we're going to get a closer look today. But what I really wanted to show you were these last two pages. There's a table, and on the left-hand column is all the different nursery rhymes. There's 36 of them. And then in the middle column in the right, you see literacy task 1 and literacy task 2. So every one of these centers comes with activities for small groups and centers, but there's also these two different tasks. This is like having two centers built in, ready to go. Again, like there's 36 of these, so that means you're going to have 72 centers ready. And you probably are not going to need more than that. You're going to get more because there's more activities in these packets, but you're guaranteed 72 centers, which is awesome. Okay, now we are going to be talking about Sing a Song of Sixpence, and that is short E. There it is. There's the first literacy task we're going to be doing. But say you don't need short E. Your students already have that. They need to put their CBC words like mixed up because they're getting them mixed up, and we need them to be able to practice like knowing which one's which. So you want mixed practice. Well, then you would just go over to the left-hand column and see which nursery rhyme it was, and then you'd know what you need to do. And that's how you can decide like what order they go in. I have them listed in like a logical order. However, you can mix and match them, absolutely, knowing what comes from week to week. Now, this one happens to be Georgie Porgie, which is a free one in my store. So a full packet is ready for you. If you like what we're doing and get these ideas are useful, go ahead and grab that one, and you can put it into place right away if this is the skill your students need. Okay, going back to the files, I have this list right here. I'm going to be keeping track as we go of all the different activities. So every packet starts off with a table of contents, and just going to go ahead and show you the first 2 pages are all about organization, some details I'll be giving you today. I wanted to show you the pictures. Please don't think you have to go buy all these things. You absolutely do not. I like to use tangible letter tiles because I already have them in my classroom. So that's something like whether you're using magnets or dice or like Scrabble pieces, you can add those in. However, I also put in letter tiles in the packet. So if you do not have these, no worries. I also use plastic storage boxes. These are from like Walmart and Michael's. This blue one right here is from the Dollar Tree. It's like a little snack size. That's great too. And I have some binders. However, you don't need to use any of those. You could use a plastic bag. You can use an envelope. You can use whatever works for you. Okay. There's also a label that's in the 4x6 size for those plastic storage boxes where you can put your center materials inside. So the first task is a center, and it's sized for those plastic storage boxes. Again, you can use whatever works. And this one is focused on a phonemic awareness skill. It's focused on short E. So every card, there's 12 of them, states name each picture, which has the short E sound. And you can see 3 pictures, so your students would be naming them: fish, dog, check. And I wrote on the left what the pictures are, because every once in a while you see a picture, you're like, wait a minute. But again, your students aren't going to be seeing this because you're cutting out these boxes. Okay, so there's 12 of these phonemic awareness tasks, and your students could answer in a variety of ways. They're in color, these printables, so I highly recommend laminating them so that you can only have to print them once and they will last, they'll be more durable. And if you're using laminate, one idea is to have your students circle the short E sound, which in this case is the check, with a dry erase marker. That's one way that they could show their answer. Another way is just to clip it. Those like plastic clothespins, you can get them at Target, or like a regular clothespin. And that's just a way that students could clip the picture that shows their answer. That's really popular. I personally like to do a cover up. So say that students have this card and they're covering up the answer with some type of token, whether it's a mini eraser. Our favorite is actually pom-poms, because my students can like pick them up really easily if we're working on like fine motor skills, but then also they're really quiet. So students would cover the check mark with pom-pom, which is a lot of fun. Or you could use a bingo chip. You can use whatever you want. So notice also the language of the question is very similar to how the MAP test and other types of assessments are worded. And that was on purpose. We don't want to teach to the test, but we do want our students to be familiar with different ways that a question can sound from question stems. So the very first thing we see after like getting ourselves organized is literacy task 1, and this is a center. There's 12 cards. It's a phonemic awareness skill. And then you can use like a token, cover answer, circle with dry erase marker, etc. And then create a center. I probably would do a few of them in small groups. And if my students were ready, I'd move them into a center. If they're not ready, we're going to just do a couple of these each day of the week as we're meeting in our small group activities. That'd be like a quick warm up. The next literacy task, there's 2 in every packet, is a set of picture cards. And these can be used for so many different things. So you could use them for naming the picture, segmenting it, stretching out the sounds, blending them back together. You could do different activities like that. But what I intended them to be used for was for word building. So there's 12 cards, and I put in letter tiles. And I put them in 2 different ways. This is differentiated. The first set of letter tiles on page 12 is just the letters that you need, and the vowels are in a different color. So this is slightly easier. So if students pick up the flag card, they're choosing the F, the L, the A, and the G to sound out the word, spell it with letter tiles. The next page is all of the alphabet. And there's vowels are there twice in black ink and in red ink. So whichever one is easier for you, you don't have to use these at all. I put some different ideas, whether your students are stringing beads, using magnetic letters. when I was first starting off as a teacher, I absolutely like couldn't afford ink. It was tough. So I did those glass beads that come like planters. And you can get like a bunch of them for a very inexpensive price. I would use a Sharpie marker, write letters on those. If I had a set of those snap cubes, Unifix cubes, I used tape and wrote letters on those so my students could build a word that way. I raided board games from everybody I knew. So like if you went to go play Scrabble at my house, you'd probably be out of luck because those made their way to my classroom. But that's what the second activity is always a word building activity. And this is really great because the focus is on phonics and you can add letter manipulatives or use the tiles that I've included. What's great about this is after you've done these packets, every week there's 12 more of these picture cards for word building. So you could start to mix and match. You could differentiate, like if one student needed CVC words and one student needed CCVC words, which is the initial blend short vowel. You could differentiate it that way. Everybody's doing word building, but they're doing it at their own level. So I am going to make a note about the differentiation because you could do it that way with different words or with those different letter tiles, having just what you need or having all the letters, which is just a little bit more for your students to sort through. Okay, moving ahead, the next activity could be a center or at your small group table. It is a sentence scrambler, and these are in every set as well. They always have a picture from the poem. So what I do, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I take the sentence scrambler, we use it for the week that's our poem, we're focused on it, and then I put it into like a little box, little station so that my students can like pick up the box, pour out the cards, put them back together in the sentence. But I do that every week and I don't separate these sentences. So like you could open a box and there'd be like 5 different sentences in there and it's okay because they all have their own picture. So my students first have to sort them out, then they can put their sentence together and that is totally fine. They can do that. All right, real quick, these cards have traceable font. So if you've printed this out, laminated it and cut it, your students could use a dry erase marker to trace it. And then they put the sentence together. Now, I will say, this is not something my students are reading these words and putting them together. Like they're not reading the word sixpence. They might read the word of and they might know that sing is the first because it has the capital letter. They might know, there's of again and again. They might know this is the last word because it has punctuation. But what we're doing is my students are using these sentence scrambles with a model. And I'll tell you what I mean in just a moment. Oops. So sentence scramblers, which are tracing, and it's a mentor sentence, and they're building the sentence. And it's really giving them a chance to reread, to check their work. Now they're using a model, and I'll tell you what I mean. There's several models in this packet that you could use. I use this one. So these are the pocket chart like strips, sentence strips, and this is the first 2 sentences. So these are mentor sentences from the poem. So when you cut these out, I know it's really hard to see them sideways. When you cut them out, they would go into the pocket chart. So what we do is this is what's waiting for my students when they walk in on Monday or the first time we meet for the week. They see, oh, here's our brand new poem and so on. And we read it together, which is when I say we, I mean me. I'm reading it and they're listening. And then we start looking at this reading together as a collaborative activity when we do shared reading. And what we're doing, and I'm just going to mention this is a pocket chart. What we're doing is we're reading, listening, and then we play I Spy. So in these different types of nursery rhyme poems, we might see some sight words that we know, or other phonics sound spellings. Like maybe there's a sound spelling that's a little harder than what we know, but it's in their name, so it's something they're familiar with. Hey, I see that digraph, and that's what my name starts with. Like the name Chen, has the CH at the beginning. Then we might also see some repeated words. Oops. Repeated words, and that's very popular in nursery rhymes. Or we might see some rhyming words in nursery rhymes, and maybe not just the rhyming words, but we notice a pattern, like they always come at the end of this sentence. And then we might notice some punctuation and things like that. So what we would do is we would be reading this poem together and listening and then exploring. When we explore, we like to use a pointer. That's always engaging and fun and focuses our visual attention. And then we are also rereading. Actually, you know what? Rereading. That is what the shared reading's all about. And your students are starting to read along with you. And we do this every day. Now it's only like 5 minutes. We're finding all these things, but we might just find like play I Spy for like 2 things the first day. Reread it. And then we find 2 things the next day to go along with the others, rereading, and so on. So by the end of the week, like we're all reading. We are recognizing these words. So it's exciting. Shared reading is awesome. It's also serving as a model because this is in the pocket chart. This is like at the carpet or wherever your students are like comfortable and sitting together. And then when you move to your stations, this should still be visible to your students that they can reference. So this is one of the models of the poem. So when you're doing sentence scrambles, you could definitely use that. Okay. After the shared reading, I'm moving into all of our retell options. So I put retell in here a couple of different ways. When we do retell, for the most part, we are doing this at the small group table or we're working together. So the first option is with these cards that fit in those plastic storage boxes. You can print them on colored cardstock. Students would be taking these and we would be putting them together. So maybe every student has their own card and together we're putting them in order. So like who has the next card, who has the next, and stuff like that. And then there's pictures that you would cut out these 4 pictures and this would be like sequencing. You'd be placing these by the sentence that they match. So this is a retelling activity. And this is what I would be doing, not in the whole group, not in the independent center, but at the small group table. So we're retelling with text and then we're adding illustrations. Now, after the week is over, you've moved on to a new poem, new nursery rhyme focus. These could go into an independent center then. It's up to you. Okay, the next set of pictures is there's a color option and a black and white if you want to print those on colored paper. Instead, they're the same pictures. Couple of things you could do with this. One is you could retell with just the pictures only. And we make them into puppets. All right, so see that crow right there with the red popsicle stick or craft stick in this picture? Oops, let me stay on that. This picture has the red popsicle sticks. That's what I mean by puppets. So you could put them together like that. I also print out a set of these pictures and put it in the pocket chart for the shared reading, putting it near the sentences, like the beginning and the end of the sentences for that. So that's a fun illustration as well for your pocket chart. You can use them for a couple of different, you just have your students hold them if you didn't want to make puppets. There are 4 of them in this set, and some of the nursery rhymes have 5, some have 4, and so on. If you were using these, and say you had more than 4 students, I would probably print this page out twice. And then so students could just have their own puppets or like 1 or 2 of them, and then they could just turn to their partner and they would be acting out the rhyme with the puppets. So yes, it is still sequencing and retell, but they're not like text dependent. They're showing like more meaning of what the poem was about when they act that out. So that is another option. And then there's one more, and it's sentence strips, but let me show you what they look like. So there's the puppets. These sentence strips, it's 1 page and you would cut out on each line. So there would be a sentence strip to put together. I have the full page one. You can print that on colored paper, but I don't use that one. I use these. So this has a half page. And so every student would get their own. Maybe I'm using the other page as the model so everyone can see it, but everybody would get their own individual one. These would be cut out, and then students would be like putting the title, then putting the first one, and so on. And that is a great activity for retell. We'd probably do it together a couple of times. Maybe students could do it independently. They could reference the model. Because again, we're not reading words like plenty and blackbirds. We're recognizing them because we've been spending a lot of time with them, but we're probably not reading them. So now, one other activity is you could do this if you had like interactive notebooks. So if students had a journal and they had these strips and were putting them together, then they could like glue them into their book in order. I will say I do not have my students do that because we just don't have a lot of time for things like glue during this. If I had a group that was like able to do that, I think it would be an awesome idea. And I have done it before, but it was just not a regular thing. So this could be if you were having an interactive notebook with you could glue the strips. That's one idea. What I would do though is I would give the students their individual copy and I would let them take them home. So that would be something that they have tangible they can take with them or put in their folder. Okay, the next activity is a handwriting page, and it is a mentor sentence from the poem, and it's where students are going to trace it, and then they are going to copy it. Down at the bottom it says go back up and like circle the sight words that you see. And they can do that in both the tracing font and in their own writing. I always give a little bit more space to write than they need. I think that's really important, learned from lots of experience. All right, now my students are very familiar with this. If you have my handwriting packet, I have 220 pages of mentor sentences that my students have done. Like they come from our favorite read aloud books. So my students are really familiar. It comes in this exact format. So we kept folders of these. And so there was no directions needed. My students knew what to do. This is one option. The other option is a mini book that also has the traceable font that students can put together. I love this idea, building our students' library. I didn't use this as often, and I'm just going to be really honest, is that these were really easy. This was one page, and the books, required some extra assembling. But you might already have like a system in your class where your students are really comfortable with mini books and maybe even putting them together themselves. So that's up to you. All right, so handwriting page, and that's where they have tracing, copying, circling, words. And then we have a mini book. And a mini book is intended for rereading, but you also have the tracing, which is the handwriting. Okay, and then the last part of every packet is a full page poem. Oops, let me keep going. A full page poem. I put two formats in this one. One is the words that we were working with, of course, and then one was the really long poem. I used this one, and there's a cover included. Oops, there's some cards. Well, there's a cover included, and we did keep a binder of all our poems. So every week we make a really big deal, like the poem is going in the book, and now we're getting a new one, and so on. And so this would be this binder. I think I have a picture of it in here. Yep, there it is. That binder would go into our classroom library. So my students would always be able to like grab that during an independent reading time. I think that's super important. Sometimes I feel like with our young students, it's like we're just showing them activities and we're doing them and then we're moving on and never talking about it ever again. And I think this kind of cumulative is really effective with students. I think they kind of feel like it's more of a sense of a belonging with that activity, a little bit more connected to it. And then the last part is just a table of contents that you can use for reference or put into the binder. All right, so I'm just going to put as our last thing, poems binder, and I put that into the classroom library, and that is where you put that full page poem in. All right, so there's a lot packed in, and I'd love to hear about which ideas you're going to grab right away, which ones are you going to add to another curriculum that you're already using, or are you going to go through them exactly like this? So all of these activities I did share for small group activities. So this is something we can do. The shared reading I did do with all of my students. So say I have like 20 students, and before they break into their rotations, their different centers, we would do the shared reading together. However, you could also just have this at your small group table. Like if the pocket chart is right nearby or it's on like the whiteboard behind you, that would be still perfect. You just want to have it visible somewhere where it could be a model for students. The sentence scramblers, the retelling, handwriting in a mini book. We have the poems binder, and then the two centers, which also could be worked on together or moved to independent centers. There's just a lot packed in here. You can see why I wanted to do the video so bad. This is the Song of Sixpence. There is a bundle with all of them, and if you go to that link, you're going to be able to look at all the different pages and see maybe there's a favorite one, maybe there's one that seems a little more seasonal. But what I would suggest is referencing that preview, because that's where the skills are for the centers, and that is how I made decisions of which one we did every week, depending on what my students needed practice with and how they were doing. So that is up to you. All right, thank you so much. I hope that was helpful for you. Be sure to check out the links below and to subscribe, because I have many more of these videos on the way. If you want a specific skill, want to see it sooner, just let me know. I'll make sure to bump that up to the top of the list. All right, thank you.